No.
Hello, can everyone hear me?
Deborah.
I can sound okay? Okay. I'm not good with these things. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Deborah Levy-Fritz. I am the chair of Tikkun Olam, which in Hebrew means to repair the world. I'm at Temple Shalom. Here at Temple Shalom, we have an abiding belief that we are everyday people, and our goal is to make the world better every day. So doing this, engaging in civic engagement in our communities is part of that holy work. And I'm so excited to welcome everyone here from all these different faith communities across North Texas to exemplify that and to learn today what we could take back into our own congregations in order to be guardians of democracy. So I really appreciate everyone being here today. So I'm going to also hand this off to my colleague and friend, Teresa Myers. Welcome everyone as well.
Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I am Teresa Myers. I am the president of Temple Shalom, and we are so honored to have you here today. Thank you, welcome, and I hope you feel comfortable and at home and hopefully got a little bit of a snack to eat. There will obviously be some breakout sessions and times for little breaks, but I also want to just thank Deborah for being my mentor. She is a past president of Temple Shalom, and when I first joined the board here, she helped me get very involved in our Tikkun Olam and our mitzvah afternoons, which is our good deeds in Hebrew. And so I've been very involved with the whole Tikkun Olam this whole time over these years. So I am honored to be here, and thank you.
So, as you all know, we're here today is on behalf of North Texas Faith Votes. So that is a collection, a multi-faith collection of institutions all around faith communities, churches, ACLU, all of us together are here today to learn. And I got involved with Texas Impact because I got an email from Nancy Caston, who's joining us today, is on Texas Impact's board, and Nancy and I are on the RAC Texas core team for the Religious Action Center and kept hearing about Texas Impact. So I checked out Texas Impact and went to a couple of events at St. Paul and at North Park Presbyterian over the last couple years. So I got excited about some of the work you were doing. So on behalf of Temple Shalom and all of us, I want to thank Texas Impact for all you're doing to help serve our community. And with that, I'm going to introduce, do you want us to Laura, right? Okay, so we're going to have a little invocation and prayer from Reverend Laura Walters, who I've met through Texas Impact, and I'm so excited to introduce. So here you go.
Fantastic. That's your organization. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I am so glad to be with you all today. I am Reverend Laura Walters. I am the coordinator of community engagement and public witness for Grace Presbytery, which we cover a lot of North Texas. In my job, I spend a lot of time talking to folks about what unifies us, and also, more recently and more often, things that divide us. I mean, there always seems to have been those silly things that universally divide us, like, do we like crunchy peanut butter or smooth peanut butter? What's the orientation of toilet paper on the roll? iPhone, Android, Oxford, comma, or not? Was that dress blue and black or white and gold? Beware, that one is coming back, so keep an eye out. There are, of course, many more serious, harder, deeper divisions, especially right now, around politics and policies and partisanships around faith and religion and philosophies, race, ethnicity, culture, and wars. I once heard Rabbi Pauly, the rabbi of this community, Temple Shalom, say that we live in a time of paradoxes. He says, we have wider freeways, but narrower viewpoints. More knowledge, but less understanding. We've been to the moon and back, but we have trouble crossing the street to meet our neighbors. We talk too much. We love too seldom, and we hate too often. I think that's true, and I also think that's why events like today's is so important. Events like today's inspire me, and they bring me hope. We're all here, I think, Because we have a measure of faith. A measure of faith, which simply means that we believe in things we've not seen before, so that we can bring them about. We have faith in things that we do not know, so that we can make them happen. We come together this afternoon with differences and beliefs and a lot of uncertainty. And because of all those things, we're reminded that we have to act. We have to engage. This afternoon, we come together with a shared human purpose, lifting up justice and fairness and the democratic process for the common good. We join together to help people reclaim their voices. And so I want to offer you this prayer today from one of my favorite books. It's called Black Liturgies. It's by Cole Arthur Riley. She is on Instagram, and if you haven't found her yet, please do. This is her prayer on voting. Let us pray. God of every voice, motivate us to use our own. We confess that we are taken with the fashionable fatalism of our culture, which leaves us unprepared for the enduring nature of justice work. Help us to have compassion for all the memories that have formed us to feel this present helplessness. Renew our practice of love in community, that civic engagement would feel vital to us again. Install a commitment to local government, elevating the discussion of the common good in our immediate places of belonging. Surround our public leaders with wise counsel and a diversity of voices, that we would not elect leaders of arrogance and unchecked narcissism, however alluring their promises may be. Expose the status desperate, the power hungry, as politicians attempt to influence us to support them. Thwart all attempts at voter suppression, the evil schemes that uniquely target Black people, the overworked, and the elderly. Spur on young people of color to pursue public service. Grant them the courage and the resources to challenge officials who have failed at serving their full humanity. Hold us in our purpose here today, that we would never become too accustomed to injustice, that we would never become numb to the pain of the world. Let us engage in tikkun olam. For this vote, our votes are only a beginning, but they are a sacred beginning. May it be so. Amen.
Good afternoon. We can do better than that, right? Let's try again. Good afternoon. Good, we're awake. I love that. Hey, my name is Scott Atnett, and I'm Texas Impact's Director of Public Witness, and I just have to say thank you for being here on a Sunday afternoon. I know there are many other things we could all be doing, but the vote is important, and the next few months are going to be important. And so I'm grateful that you're here. Texas Impact has been mentioned a couple of times already. I wanted to give you a very quick introduction to the organization for those who are not familiar. Texas Impact was founded in 1973 to be the legislative arms at the time of the Texas Conference of Churches, and it's continued to grow to represent Texans of faith, and specifically judicatory bodies or governing bodies of religious institutions. But y'all, Texas Impact is you. Right? We have a team in Austin that lobbies on behalf of our board's consensus agenda. We have a team that will go out and work with congregations to help them be effective advocates. But none of that works if we don't have people in every legislative district throughout the state who are doing the work. Any accomplishments that Texas Impact has are in large part due to our members and congregations throughout the state who are talking to their legislators, who are building those relationships, who are encouraging people to engage in the civic engagement process. And so every year, every other year during the legislative session, we'll have teams that will go to the Capitol, we'll have rapid response alerts that go out to our our members of our different teams that encourage them to call their legislators. And spoiler, sometimes during the legislative session, people get frustrated because the outcomes aren't what they hoped for. Amen? Anybody ever have that experience? This is the time when we can do something about that. This is the time, this part of the biennial session, the biennium, is when we have a chance to shape what happens during the legislative session. So I'm grateful that you're here today. But our overwhelming premise is that democracy works best when the whole of the community is represented. And in Texas, we don't do a very good job of that. And so we're going to talk today about some strategies and some ideas and some things you can do to help make sure that your congregations and your communities are participating in this election cycle. Are we excited for that work? Yes. That was like, yeah, that's more well. All right. So I'm grateful you're here. I'm grateful for all the speakers. I look forward to being a part of the conversation with you. I would encourage you to go check out texasimpact.org. We have teams that you can get involved in that are meeting weekly on different issues. We have ways for you to get involved. And I'm looking at Davey, I almost forgot to announce. For those who have friends who are planning on watching on the live stream, the technology is not working to make it happen live, but we'll post the video of the event on Texas Impact's YouTube channel soon. So if you know somebody who's trying to get on right now, text them and apologize from us, but it will be on the YouTube channel soon. All right, thank y'all for being here.
Good afternoon. I see familiar faces here I'm excited to see, and some new friends I'm excited to get to know, and I thank you all for being here. I am Amy Moore, and I get to be called the convener of North Texas Faith Votes, which only means that I get to send notes and organize a few things for all the people that do this wonderful work to bring this to you. So with that, and also will mention that I am an parish associate for spirituality and justice at North Park Presbyterian Church, and also with the Social Justice and Public Witness Committee of Grace Presbytery. Right now, I'd like to introduce the members of those who have been participating in the steering committee for North Texas Faith Votes. And when I say your name, I invite you to stand up if you're here, so you may be acknowledged. Let me start with Armel Crocker. He is Commissioned Pastor of Faith United Presbyterian Church and also representative of the Social Justice and Public Witness Committee of Grace Presbytery, and I will not be saying that anymore. Angela Williams of Life Church UMC in DeSoto. Doris Marshall, First UMC, Dallas. Carol Shaw of St. Paul UMC. Sarah Barrow Harrop, Texas United Universalist Justice Ministry. Phil Beakey of First UMC Dallas. Laura Churchill, Arapahoe UMC. Karen Edelstein of National Council of Jewish Women. Erica Matzel of Temple Emmanuel. Deborah Tony Fritz of Temple Shalom. Laura Walters, you've already met from Grace Presbytery. The Sister Tabitha Mahasbeen from the Islamic Association of Collin County. And Vanessa, I didn't have your name on my list, and I apologize, Vanessa Medlock. Thank you also. And I'd like to give a shout out for the support of Texas Impact for B. Moorhead, Kyle Riley, who are not here, Rebecca McElwain, you'll meet later. She represents Houston Faith Votes and has been a great resource to us for Texas Impact initiative that's already begun elsewhere. And wonderful David Vassallo, our tech wizard. Thank you. All right, welcome. And if you are interested in any way of working together with us, please approach any one of us and give us your name and email address. We'd be glad to add you to our list on the steering committee. Right now, I'd like to introduce the next portion or our panel discussion, which is coming up. So I would like to invite Robin Carafile. Robin is a longtime member of Temple Shalom, a past president of the Temple Sisterhood, and a current member of the Board of Trustees. She's active with the Sisterhood and Tikkun Olam efforts of the Temple's membership and community. Danielle Ayers, welcome. Reverend Danielle Ayers is a staunch advocate of justice, a devoted author, preacher, and teacher. She currently serves as pastor of justice at Friendship West in Dallas, a 12,000-member house of worship, where she leads the church's public policy agenda and justice initiatives, thus strengthening a mission for a just society within and outside the church. And Kathy Sweeney. Reverend Kathy Sweeney is the associate pastor of adult discipleship at Arapahoe United Methodist Church. Kathy, a former real estate developer, now dedicates her life to nonprofit work, supporting people experiencing homelessness, poverty, and promoting racial reconciliation through numerous humanitarian organizations in the DFW area. And last but not least, I want to thank our moderator, Scott Acknett. He is the Director of Public Witness with Texas Impact and has been there since 2012, which I understand is, like, aside from me, right, the longest term staffer.
Yeah, it's been a hot
It's
day.
been a minute, yeah. And he's also the engaging moderator of the weekly Witness podcast that comes out on Fridays. Check it out. He is the perfect person to take it forward. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you. And hey, thank this panel one more time. All right? I appreciate y'all being here, and I'm going to start out with a really hard question. Y'all, these last few months, right? It's been something. I feel like we are living through a month or two period that they're going to have college classes written about. Amen, right? There's been a lot going on. And we've had a couple of years where I think people have been feeling anxiety, where tensions are tough. Why is it especially important in this moment that faith communities are engaged in civic engagement work, that you're using your voices to make sure that our congregations and communities are engaged? And we'll start here with Robin.
Okay. All right, I'll go first. I'm Robin Carafile. I'm a member here at Temple Shalom. So in Judaism, one of the key things that makes us different is our pursuit of justice and our efforts every day of the year, every day of every year. In the book of Deuteronomy, we are commanded, justice, justice, you shall pursue. We pursue justice and equality in the Jewish tradition based on the concept that all God's children are created equal. Tikkun Olam is a concept in Judaism that means repairing the world. So we take care of the world and show how much we love it by helping to clean it and working toward fixing any problems that we find. We help people get along without fighting, and we try to make the world more fair and help everyone with what they need to live in a safe and healthy life. We use nice words, we avoid hurtful speech, we celebrate freedom for all people and the ability to make our own choices. In Judaism, we are commanded to uphold and protect the most vulnerable. What is hateful to you, do not do to anybody else. So individual civic engagement and mobilizing collective action to uplift our voices are important in this moment because Jewish sages of old have taught us it is not your duty to finish the work, but neither are you at liberty to neglect it. We're taught to be brave and keep trying to meet our goals, even if it's hard to do. So there's a lot of work to be done, and now is the time to actively pursue social justice through education, action, and advocacy. All right.
Pastor Danielle.
Sure. So first, let me thank you again for the invitation. It's always exciting to be in spaces that are interfaith because I like the idea that we can bring our full selves to the conversation and be who we are and what centers us. And so for me, to answer your question in a short way, which I'll try to do, for me, I come from a non-traditional Baptist church, right? So a lot of it is rooted and grounded in an African-centered worldview. And part of that is, what does it mean to be human? And so for us, and for me, it's important in this moment because we have lost, in my opinion, a sense of what it means to be human. And that we do not see humanity in other people, and that's evident in our policies and our laws, etc. So I think it's so important for us to, one, can we understand that fundamental fact, without religion, without spirit, just fundamentally, what does it mean to be human and to not have your humanity so diminished, like that you dehumanize others. And so that's kind of where I'm centered, and then obviously as a, not just a Black Baptist, but one who believes in Black liberation theology and womanist theology. That theology, that God taught who God means to me and how I see God showing up in the world, manifest in the justice work that I do. Because for me, it is about how do we deal with systems and institutions that inherently are undergirded, right, by a version of white supremacy that continues to then create a society that was created and rooted and grounded in that. And we're constantly every day trying to battle against something that was baked into this nation. And so Black and brown, particularly communities, feel that brunt even more so. So it's Howard Thurman says, you know, in Jesus the Disinherited, he starts off one chapter by saying, and many and varied are the interpretations of the life and ministry of Jesus Christ. But many of those interpretations have very little to say to those who stand in the moment in time their backs against the wall. So for me, it is that Jesus that we pull out, Luke 4:18, what I call a theological sandwich, right? Where the Spirit of the Lord is on me, you know, the theology of that God is in it. But in between that, right, I think Jesus talked about unpacking, dealing with systems, social, bring good news to the poor. Well, that must mean, what does faith have to say? What's the good news to free people up from the bad news of poverty and exploitation? Whether that's payday lending, right? Or whether that's living in a community where you're trying to buy groceries and the prices are exorbitant, right? It makes it hard to buy food for families. And so for me, that's where it starts. It starts one, what does it mean, Ubuntu, right? What does it mean for me to disrupt and deconstruct all the isms that exist? And we can run the whole list of what those are. And so that's where it starts. So why civic engagement is so, and civic engagement is so broad, right? That can be political or non-political action. But for me, it's so important because it's how do you get people to see that the power has and always will lie with the people. So letting people know you do have power. How do you give that power up, but how do you use that power then to change the world, to be agents of social change, and yes, to be disruptors. I think most of us have different faith traditions, but most of all our faiths calls us to be disruptors of a society, right, that is antithetical, in my opinion, to God's design and desire for all of us to live an abundant life, right? To live freely who we were designed and created to be in all of our different and various ways. And so part of civic engagement is also social cohesion. So we can only do that when I can look at someone who's different from me, who doesn't think like me, a different faith, but also understanding you have just as much right to live in this world, to be your authentic self. The only time we can't agree is if your oppression and liberation is at my expense, right? But other than that, how do we find a way to make this world as such through our collective action?
Right. Love that. Kathy, same question. Why is it important in this moment?
Why is it important in this moment? I was fortunate this summer to participate in a week-long summer academy at the Center for Faith and Justice at Georgetown University, which is led by Reverend Dr. Jim Wallace, who also will be here speaking on the 28th at North Haven United Methodist Church, co-sponsored by Arapahoe. You can go to North Haven's website to get tickets for that. But he's one of my, he's just amazing. And what he mentioned about why is this the right time, he brought up two different things. One is just two concepts of time. One is the chronos time, which is like the tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. We're getting there. Most elections are chronos time. There's There's an event and it happens. That's Chronos time. But right now is more Kairos time. Kairos time and this Kairos moment is an abnormal time, a time that can change time and events for decades and generation. And so not only do we have a Chronos time right now, but we also have a Kairos time, where what we do and say and do in this moment, leading up to this election and beyond, can change generations to help liberate people, to bring freedom and hope to the oppressed. That is incredibly important to me, to know that it is an event that's coming but doesn't stop on November 5th. When I think about time, I think about creation and God's creation. And two things inform me about that with the word chaos. That the word chaos came at the beginning of creation, when God calmed the waters and created the waters and the sky and the sun and the moon, and there was a calmness that came out to it. But in the New Testament, in the Christian tradition, I think it's the Gospel of Mark, there's a story of Jesus calming the seas. And similar to what Danielle was saying about Luke 4, that we can misinterpret what Jesus was saying, that the Spirit has come upon me to bring good news to the poor, can be misinterpreted. The same thing with Jesus sleeping in the middle of a storm and stood up and spoke to chaos. He spoke to chaos of a storm and calmed it. He didn't say, look, everybody, this is your spiritual time to go out and volunteer and be good. He stopped the chaos, and there's a whole lot of chaos going on right now. And so what I believe our responsibility as people of faith, whatever faith, is to listen to and read what Jesus has done, what God has done, what is being done in this Chronos Kairos time to stop the chaos. And only when we stop the chaos can we start healing and moving forward and making this a very instrumental time with our voices and our feet and our hands.
Yeah, I love that, right? Yeah, I do think there's chaos. And on the podcast several weeks ago, I think I framed one of the questions in terms of the anxiety that was happening in the world. And Beeman Floyd, who is our contract lobbyist, talked about joyful engagement, right? And talked about the idea that when we come together as congregations or as groups like this afternoon, there's a joy. Right, there's a joy in doing this civic engagement work. There's a joy in doing this advocacy work, but it doesn't end on election day in November. Danielle was talking earlier about what we're going to do during the legislative session. This is a movement towards justice. I think John Wesley talks about the journey towards perfection, which means we're not there yet. We've still got a lot of work to do. And you three were selected by the committee in part because of the work that your congregations are doing to engage people, hopefully joyfully, in this work, sometimes in the midst of chaos. And so this next question is really, hopefully, a resource for those who are in the room. Talk to us about what your congregations are doing, or what you hope other congregations might consider doing to engage people in this civic engagement work. And we'll start with Robin, because I walked in today and saw the work that they were doing. I was inspired by it. Super easy thing that everyone can do. So talk to us about that.
Okay, so one of the things that we're doing here at Temple Shalom, well, first of all, I am the Social Justice Vice President for the Sisterhood, the women's organization. So we have it's official, we have social justice, well, I already said in the beginning, Rabbi Paley says social justice is something we do every hour of every day, every year. But Temple Shalom is participating through the Religious Action Center. The Religious Action Center is the advocacy arm for the Reformed Jewish movement. So with RAC, we are participating in the Every Voice, Every Vote campaign. The Every Voice, Every Vote campaign is about democracy, because democracy thrives when every voice is heard and when every vote is cast and counted. And what we're doing is taking action. We are writing postcards to Texas voters. And maybe some of you are familiar with Reclaim Our Vote and the postcard campaigns that they do. If you're not, I urge you to check it out. But so Every Voice, Every Vote through the Religious Action Center, the postcards are really coming from the Reclaim Our Vote. We are sending handwritten postcards and hand-addressed postcards to Texas voters. These are people, we ordered 1,000 postcards, and these are people who live in underserved communities, primarily people of color, and these are registered voters who receive the postcards. They have voted, they will vote, they don't vote all the time, and nobody ever asks them to vote. So they are low propensity, high opportunity voters. And Reclaim Our Vote has already said through their research, they know the results are about 3% increase in voter turnout. So anyway, this morning, we've got a busy few weeks. We're going to hand address and handwrite 1,000 postcards, and we're about halfway there, and we'll put them in the mail October 1st. So some of the programs that we've had in the last 3 years and some of these were on Zoom and some were in person. You know how it goes. Zoom is a thing now, of course. Texas Legislature 101. Know how your Texas legislature works. That was a good program. The history of the Jim Crow laws in Dallas. We did that. We went to the Dallas Holocaust Museum and we did the special exhibit tour about the Jim Crow days in Dallas. We got on a bus. We get on the bus. It was a tour of the Dallas African American and Jewish historical sites in Dallas. That was about the most fun thing I remember us ever doing. It was a great day with our sisterhood in Dallas. We have had 2 programs with the same name. It's called A Day in the Life of a Legislative Assistant. So when we are members here of the women's organization, the Sisterhood, we are automatically members of Women of Reformed Judaism, which is the broader organization. So in Washington, D.C., there is a legislative assistant that we pay for. Our sisterhoods, we give money to the Women of Reformed Judaism, and WRJ pays for, that's just one of the things that we fund, but this legislative assistant is always somebody young, right out of college. But anyway, so we've had 2 of them come and tell us what they're doing every day. It's fantastic. We have had a voter information program with the Texas Civil Rights Project, Know the Laws and Know Your Rights. We participated with the National Council of Jewish Women, NCJW, with Repro Shabbat last February. We're going to do it again this February. Thank you, Rabbi Nancy Kasten, for coming to deliver the sermon, a meaningful sermon to us that night here at Temple Shalom. We have a program coming up on September 4th. Reproductive freedom is religious freedom. We're going to have a presentation from the Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. I told you about the postcards. And on top of all that, we provide our congregation with information about when and where to vote, and how to vote by mail and so forth. So how to become a voter registration, a VDR. We encourage people to be a poll worker. We encourage people, of course, to vote. And we cleaned the pantry a couple of times at Jewish Family Services. We have filled little snack bags for the kids at Family Gateway. We knitted little hats and donated them to chemotherapy patients. Those are some of our Tikkun Olam projects. And we have much more in the works. So we're pretty busy with social justice here at Temple Shalom.
That exhausted me just hearing it. It's a lot of good work. Thank you. At Arapahoe United Methodist Church, we have a number of justice-related initiatives. But a lot of what we've done from an advocacy standpoint recently is partnering with Texas Impact. We typically send 3 or 4, this year hopefully more, people to the legislative session, Texas Impact at the end of January. And we come back from that invigorated, having learned how to speak with legislators and really focus on particular issues. One thing that we did this year was in our justice ministry table, which is a group of about 5 people. If you're on that team, would you raise your hand real quick? Yeah. So they're here. We scoured our database for people, not just members, but people in our database who had participated at Arapahoe United Methodist Church at least 3 times in something, not just going to worship, not just anything, but maybe going to an outing, or maybe participating in a Bible study that they had 3 times in 18 months. And we shipped that off to Texas Impact, and they pulled it all together and said, here are the districts in Texas that your active people are members of, are constituents of those. Now, some of them were logical, but because we are a destination church, that people come from Frisco, they come from far Plano, they come from Wiley, they come from kind of all over the place. It was surprising to see how many were in a particular district. And so that ministry table has taken it upon themselves to go visit those legislators and talk about, I may not live in your district, but I am a pastor of a church where 100 people live in your district. And we want to share with you what our issues are this year: election integrity, reproductive justice, and policy, and public education. And we have talking points that we've mentioned to each of those. It's been incredibly enlightening to us, not really trying to change minds right now, but to hear what we might hear and bring back to envelop more change in the systemic part. One thing that we're meeting on, sorry guys, but we're meeting on sometime this week. And we want to really, I forget where I heard this, so someone here may take credit for this. I just wish I knew who it was. But learn if our congregation really represents what they say they represent. Let me give you an example. I think it was someone at Texas Impact. I think B may have told me this, but that if you were to ask our congregation or your congregation, what percentage of our congregation votes? I asked my husband that last night, and he said, it's got to be 70 or above.
Everyone, right? We all vote, right?
Yeah, we all vote. It's got to be 70 or above, right? That's probably low, right? Because we just believe that. And my question back to Steve was, well, what if it's 25? And he said, well, that would surprise me. And I said, and I would be disappointed. Is that fair to say that I'd be disappointed that it was 25? So we are trying to work with Texas Impact. The next thing with our database is if there's a way, which I know there is, to just say if they voted. And start a baseline. Let's say it's 25%. And then work towards it being 40%, so we could see the effect of what this advocacy and work has been. I really hope it's not 25%. I really do. But one of the things that we're going to talk about in our next meeting is how we represent that to the congregation. If you can imagine some of the fundraisers that are done in schools, and they have like the little temperature gauge, and it moves up with red as you get to your goal, something like that. And maybe it's a big hardback poster with the letters vote on them, and people bring their voting sticker and put it on there so we can fill up that vote in the lobby so that we know that we're doing it. Not with names or anything like that, but how can we represent that to each other, that we're all in this together, and that it's not just a function of one sticker being up there. That looks great on Instagram, but I want to see 500 stickers up there, knowing that we did our part to move forward and to calm the waters with our vote.
I love that. If y'all do it, post it, tag Texas Impact. Danielle.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to thank you for centering that Kairos moment that we are in, because I believe that as well. And part of being prepared, because you never know when a Kairos moment is going to happen, but that's why we do I call this slow work. Yeah. Because it's not an overnight thing that we do. We have to be very consistent and committed to it. So thank you for that, because I think that's where we are. What are we doing? Well, if I forget, I'll probably forget something, because like you all were doing so much. But what we are doing, particularly for the summer and the fall, we're calling it Faith, Democracy, and the Future is the overarching title. And we have 2 separate ways to do it. We have the summer of empowerment and the fall of empowerment, namely because we also are commemorating the 60th anniversary of Freedom Summer, which obviously was not only the drive to the right to vote, but was much more than that. that being the center and thing about voter registration, education, and voter turnout. So during the summer, what we've done so far, I'll categorize it. We do teach-ins, we do trainings, and we do listening sessions. So for teach-ins, for example, we did an all-male listening session where over 300 Black men came, and the idea was just to listen. We had question prompts, because looking at data and looking at documentaries and looking at news reports, how Black men were not engaging and they felt not engaged and not heard, right? So we specifically did that listening session. We recently did one with Gen Z, who is the future of our electorate. And I would encourage all of us to be very intentional about really participating and reaching out to Gen Zers and really, getting their feedback and how they see the future. What are their worries? What are their fears, etc. Because they're the future, and we must be able to empower them with the right information. Because there are a lot of disinformation and misinformation out there on all social media platforms that people listen to. So we recently did that with Gen Z and millennials, and it was very interesting to hear the feedback. Because what we may be thinking by, some of us being older voters, put myself in that category now. Most of us already, our IQ as it relates to voting and political systems is kind of high, right? So it's how do we get those generations to also hear them, what they're thinking about, because that should inform what we do. Right, we should do that based on what people are thinking and feeling is how we should inform the work that we do. So we do the listening sessions. The teach-ins are very numerous, right? So part of the teach-ins are, how does your government work? So fundamentally we just did already how your local government is set up and how it should work theoretically. We know it doesn't always work the way it looks on paper, right? So we do a series of how government works. We'll now do the county and state, and then we'll do federal. Because oftentimes we will hear people say, well, I'm not voting because this person didn't do X, Y, and Z, and then I have to say, that's not what they do. So sometimes people are not engaged and not voting because they're not sure how government really works and who's responsible at each level. So those are some of the trainings that we do. That's a teaching that we do, how government works, that's an example. And then we're also doing a series of trainings. Some of that is around being a VDR, some of that is around coming to learn what does it mean to actually work the polls. Because it's also important, not just voting, just not registering to vote, turning out to vote. We give a lot of attention to that. It's necessary, but for me, I always think about how are we building pipelines, how are we building infrastructure to do this work beyond election day. And that's how you can step into a Kairos moment for a change to happen because you're prepared and you have infrastructure. So for me, I'm big on I'm an institutionalist by nature. I believe in building strong systems and institutions so that the work can continue regardless of who's in place. And so that's the idea of the fall and summer. So we're doing all those kind of activities to empower people, to show them where they have power, engage and invite them to be a part of what we're doing so they can learn to be an election judge. They can learn how systems work. They can be heard so that they can inform what we do. So what we're doing all month of August also, we did it today, every Sunday we are also organizing the entire congregation, right? So like, hey, you want to be a poll worker? Sign up. Do you want to do canvassing? So we're going to canvass. We're going to do high touch voter engagement. We adopted the precinct around the church, which is pretty huge. So we're going to go knock on doors and talk to people and get their feedback. We're going to do a series of phone banking, right? We're also going to do a series of making sure that we organize people to get rides to the polls. So it's a series of things that we're doing, not just for the election season. It's going to impact our election season, we hope. But we hope that beyond that, people see, I need to be civically engaged on a number of levels. I need to serve on park boards, right? Because in Dallas, the city of Dallas, you're part of the city structure. Citizens sit on those boards, and those can be powerful boards for your neighborhood. So we're trying to build beyond the election, but we know people are even more so excited about the election. I see a turn in some people's faces and conversations. So we hope that translates into beyond November, how are you going to stay engaged and connected, right? So those are some of the activities that we are doing that we hope will be long-term and not just for the moment. I know I'm missing some things that we do, but those are like the high touch things, right? To get people engaged in the election, but also empower them to be prepared to do the work that we're currently doing and to move us into the 89th legislative session as well. Because we also do a lot of training. I'm sure you all use Texas Impact training, advocacy training. So we use it to do that, and we also do a lot of organizing training. So we do organizing 101. We also do a session on how do you understand how systems institutions work. We do something on the, the power, the promise, and the poison of public policy. Like, we really show people that you cannot do anything in your life where policies and laws don't dictate that. So it's better to understand it so you know how to engage it. So that's some of the work that we are doing at Friendship West.
I love that. Amen. Right? And the gold star for the election workers work that y'all are doing. I know we talked a lot about that 4 years ago. We talked a lot about that 2 years ago. Still a need, maybe more so of a need for people to sign up to be election workers. I was just given a note that says y'all were handed note cards if you have questions for the panel. We'll see if we have time to get to some based on your responses to this next question. But hold those up if you have a question. I'm going to ask one more, and then we'll see if we have time for others. So, hint maybe shorter answers. Not shorter, that was me, right? They've been perfect answers. But hey, so what if you listen to the podcast, if you've seen us at events before, one of the things I often say is this isn't like for y'all to come have fun and like watch a good show and then go home and go back to your normal lives. The purpose of these events is to go home with a homework assignment or to go home planning to do some work. So I'm going to let y'all as a panel give them some homework, give them a challenge. What do you hope folks will do when they return back to their congregation, when they return back to their community? What's your charge?
Short and sweet. I guess short and sweet. The Talmud says, where there is no one to fill a particular role, accept that role upon yourself. So go home and pick up the role and do it.
Love.
Well, that's pretty much what I was going to say. Determine where you feel comfortable engaging in the work, because we all have different skills, talents, skills, and abilities. And I just always tell people, whatever you have to offer, we need it in the work. Find out what it is and just plug in. That's my short answer.
We only use so little time, I can take more. I want to say that find your person, find your encourager, find the person that lifts you up, because clearly you have a passion or you wouldn't be here. You have a conviction for social justice and working towards something. Find who that person is. Get a buddy that you can talk to, who can lift you up. I shared something in a class this morning about, again, that summer that I was there. We went to the Martin Luther King National Monument in DC. And if you can imagine what the monument looks like, it's built out of mountains in 3 parts, and 2 of them in the background are built with mountains to them. They're chiseled out of rock or granite or whatever it is, but they look like mountains. And the 3rd is the monument, the bust of, or the carving of Martin Luther King. And if you stand beside the mountains, you can see that the 3rd part, which is Martin Luther King, pushes out from that mountain. And what the artists were trying to convey was that out of a mountain of despair comes a stone of hope. That pushes forward. Out of a mountain of despair comes a stone of hope. And the reason that I said find your person, find your encourager, find the person that will lift you up to continue to use your voice, is that will give you some self-care and it will keep you focused on hope. And that's really what we need to do.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I have a comment about advocacy, something that I've learned, because I was going on and on, I forgot to tell you about all the advocating we've done, how many times we've called our legislators. So I won't go into all that, but I will say that reasonable expectations, like it's really important when we have an action alert, like call your Texas legislature today to do it, pick up the phone and make the call. But there may only be 5 of you that do that, 5 or 10 people who actually pick up the phone or send the email or write the postcard, whatever. But those add up so much, they really do. Just do it, just do it. So few people will answer that call, but when you click on a link and you automatically send an email to your representatives, those add up. But one example, we had a Zoom meeting with Senator John Cornyn's staffer, Jack Youngblood. And this was a statewide, it was the Religious Action Center, Rack, Texas. So it was just in Texas. And there were 75 of us on the call. And then Jack Youngblood, but 15 of us were from Temple Shalom. Now think about it, that's a big impact, right? 15 people out of 75, when you got from all over the state of Texas, people were there. But do we know what's involved in getting 15 people? Did any of us get 15 people here today, right? It's a big deal to get 15 people to show up. It takes phone calls and emails and so forth. But when we do show up, and when the 15 of us were there, it made a difference. If only 5 of us had been there, it makes a difference. But anyway, just 5 or 10 of us, when we take action, and a whole bunch of other groups are doing it too, it makes a difference.
I love that. I see the Arapaho people counting this evening. I did get a question from the audience, and I'm going to put a little of my own framing on this one, and this will be our last question before we move into the next panel. Y'all, I was at a camp this summer, and I had 3 leadership high school students, like seniors and incoming freshmen, who didn't know what they were walking into because we didn't know each other very well, but they told me that they didn't plan on voting. And I've been thinking about that a lot because they cared about their community, they cared about people, they cared about all the things they should be caring about, but didn't feel that when they could vote, they would do that because they didn't feel like it was worthwhile. Broke my soul, y'all. I heard you all moan. Like, you feel the same way, but we all know these people, right? And we've talked about the younger generation. So the question, how do you convince someone who feels that there's nothing or no one worth voting for, or that their votes have no effect, mentions the Electoral College, mentions the presidential election. But for those people who don't feel that their vote is worthwhile or they're not going to spend the time, what would you say to them?
I'm gonna have to think about that for a second.
Ponder on that one.
So I have a 30-year-old and a 23-year-old. The oldest is a girl and the youngest is a boy. And I've talked to Jack, our youngest, sometimes when I'm frustrated. I think I'm just gonna move. I think Steve and I are just gonna move from Texas because we're just so frustrated. And he reminds me that, well, that stands against everything that you've been working for your whole life, right? And so I turn that a little bit onto others, that the youngsters, when they say it's not gonna make a difference, the word yet comes up. The word hope comes up. I don't know what I say specifically to that person. It's different for each person, but I always use the word yet, and I usually use the word hope, and I usually mention that we are not just voting for one person, or one position. We are voting for several positions, and within all of those positions, there is hope that change will come. That's
Tell them they're voting for their kids.
well, these are the kids. They're not thinking about kids yet.
Okay, we are standing on the shoulders of those who came before us. And I thought, was it a couple of years ago, I guess, that we celebrated the 100-year anniversary of the women getting the right to vote, right? So those men and women worked for 75 to 100 years. I don't know how long they worked for, a long time to make that happen. And there were a lot of people who worked really hard on women getting the right to vote. And they didn't live to see the day, but we reap the benefits of that. So we are standing on their shoulders, and the people coming after us are going to stand on our shoulders, and we've just got to keep it going. We're not going to give up. Anyway, it is not our job to finish the work, but neither are we at liberty to neglect it.
So, wow, it's not an easy answer, I would say that, because everything is there's so many intersections to deal with. But I always think about James Baldwin's quote that says, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. And so for a lot of people, right, we're saying vote, it makes a difference what they see, right, what policies and laws are put in place. They're seeing what's happening. For a lot of our young people, that is what they're looking for. When they see that, they're like, well, why should I vote? I see this happens and this happens. So a way of engaging and encouraging people to vote. Because when you think about a racial democracy, it's only been 60 years for Black folks who have the right to vote. So right, that's somebody who lived in their lifetime. Somebody's still alive who was there. And so I think for us, but we can only say that to our younger generation, People die for the right, they're like, and, right, really, they're like, I'm seeing what I'm catching out here every day. So I need to be able to relate. So a way of doing that, I remember Dr. Haynes told the story he was teaching at Paul Quinn as an adjunct one semester. And a young guy was in the class and he was saying he wasn't gonna vote. It didn't matter why should he vote. And so Dr. Haynes just asked him, I think he may have had a run-in with the law at some point. And so he asked him, well, what judge was sitting on the bench when you were in court? So he explained how hard and difficult it was with the judge he had. So Dr. Haynes said, well, when you vote, this is an impact. Right, some judges are elected, some are appointed. If they're appointed by somebody who was elected. Right, so some of it is being able to relate to people in their everyday life, their life between Sundays, right? How can you tell them how voting and not voting can impact their daily living? Yeah. You just have to make it real for people, right? And begin to let them know. So this is a way for you to change systems when you vote, but that's why I'm saying it's not just about telling people to go vote. You have to be able to get people to understand how the system works and show them ways in which civic engagement, again, is more than voting. Sometimes it may be you become a civil servant, right? You may be an elected. So you have to be able to show people that it's a system, right? Voting is part of that. So I think you have to show people more than just that moment, because when the moment is over, somebody has to trail those who got elected to see, are they doing what they said they were going to do?
Yeah, and I think I love that. Also, I don't want to attack the premise of the question, but we think so much about elections in terms of presidential elections. Right. But you're right that those judges are elected. Looking at Grace over here in a room full of, we have several public school defenders in here who spent the last year working on school board issues, fighting back against Christian nationalism in our schools and book bans and curriculum and chaplains in schools. I think Josh used to staff that said, you can't win a presidential election unless you can win a state. You can't win a state if you can't win a House district. You can't win a House district if you can't win a school board election. So why not try to go win some school board elections, right? And that's something that we can certainly impact as congregations, as people, as we can pay attention to what's happening at the local level, city council, school board, and those votes matter a lot, right? And so focus on those, right?
Can I say one more? Because to your point.
I'm not going to cut you off.
So to your point, I think this is why it's so important, right? I always go back to 2008 or 7 when Obama was elected, right? Immediately, right? To your point about local elections and the rise of the Tea Party, right? And white Christian nationalism has always been with us. But I think that era ushered in more of the public facing, where now it's not undercover, right? It's like in our faces. And so, but I would tell people, but it was a brilliant tactic, right? Let's win everything local, and then we go up. Because here's the reality: if you're an elected, it's always easier to get an elected than elected, right? And so that's part of why I tell people run for office. It doesn't matter what it is. If you feel compelled to do that, run for that office, and then you can move up or stay there if you feel you're most impactful. But that's why voting is critical in every election, whether it's a bond election, amendment election, and then how do we make sure we put the education out there? So, because those can be confusing when you're reading bond and wording, right? In Dallas, we had, this multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar bond for public safety. That sounds good to everybody. Until they tell you we're putting these billions into more militarized training, and we know what that translates for Black and brown communities. So you have to be able to show why your local electeds are, because they're making those decisions and they're passing those things down to the city, and just seeing what are some of the ways you push to even change the way they function, right? So what's this idea? You have city council meetings during the daytime, people are working. People most impacted who don't have the privilege to leave, like I can go downtown and sit all day. Most people can't do that, right? So it's also showing how sometimes it's designed for people not to engage. And so how do we then, but that's the whole movement in and of itself, to push for something, a difference. So just showing people that you have the power, all types of power, right? The solidarity power is important. The narrative power is like all the ways that we have power to really shift and change the systems and institutions that I think need to be deconstructed and reconstructed. But I'm not one to say tear down and don't have a plan for building it back up, right? You just can't get rid of something. It's like, well, then what? So I think that's the slow work, that's the intellectual work that has to happen. And so that's why I say everybody has a place in this movement. It's how do we look at our congregations and say, here's where we need you, and let people fill in. And I want to go back to something you said about your voting, when you look at your congregation, are you looking into your congregation, or are you looking to see how percentage of vote, how high percentage of voting? How high? So we did that, last election. We ran our database through, because I was nervous. So I'm like, surely you don't go to this church and not vote, but I was very surprised, right? We had a high voting percentage. So then that let me know, oh, okay, but somewhere here they're only voting. How can I get them to take the next step and be more engaged in the work ongoing?
Right.
So that's an excellent thing you're doing, because that can really let you know where should you start, right, to increase that. So I think that's always great when you can survey, and I survey the congregation quite often, because we're, people change, we have a whole new group. We had 200 people join the church in 3 months, that's a whole church. So that tells me I need to now do some type of survey, so I can figure out, where do you live, what's important to you, do you vote, are you registered, etc. I would say it's also important to do that wherever however small, whatever size your congregation, know who you have, what they have to offer, and what's their engagement currently, and then go from there. Because if you can build I believe you can really organize your congregation. That just spreads out, because treasure, they're gonna tell somebody else, it's gonna tell somebody else who wants to come and be a part of it.
All right, I could talk to y'all all day, and this has been fantastic. They've been great, right? I really feel like y'all have helped answer the why question, and the next panel and the breakouts coming up soon are going to talk about the what and the how. But thanks for starting it out with a really incredible start. Who's ready to get to work? Hey, for real. The hands raised, I'm out of here. We've got audio video. Let's try that again. Who's ready to get to work? All right, thank you.
I'm going to introduce our plenary panel. And just to tell you broadly who's going to be speaking, we have Esmeralda Garcia from Dallas County. We're going to have Mary Ibarra and Joseph Krenick from ACLU. And then and we've also got someone from Rideshare, but it is, it's Rideshare to Vote Aware, and that's Sarah Kovich. So I'm going to be bringing everyone up one at a time, and I'm going to ask people to stay, because I do have a couple of questions already that you guys handed us, but they're really more for this panel, I think. So we'll address those there. But if you have another question, we'll be handing out cards again, and we'll be able to, so everyone can kind of share in their responses towards the end, okay? So with that, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, and that is Esmeralda Garcia from Dallas County, from our election department. Esmeralda Garcia is the Dallas County Voter Registration Outreach Coordinator. She has been with the Dallas County elections since 2012, a dedicated advocate for voter education and community engagement, with experience in coordinating VR outreach, community events, and a strong commitment to ensuring that every voice is heard. Esmeralda has been involved in promoting civic participation and empowering diverse Dallas County communities. She oversees the Volunteer Deputy Registrar Program, in which she has trained over 3,000 volunteers to help educate and sit down, you get to stand up, and you got your PowerPoint ready, and I will, and one of the questions applies, I'll may ask them, but you go ahead and then we'll bring up the next person. You guys sit down.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, everyone. I love having this type of conversations. Whether you're a first-time voter or already an experienced voter, I'm sure you'll learn something here and have questions and you'll learn something. The elections department, a lot of people think we only come out every 4 years, every presidential, but no, like the group was saying, we have elections every year. And we need all the help that we can get in order to educate our community, and that's what you guys are here for. So we appreciate you. We appreciate you guys having this event. Alrighty, our mission in the elections department is basically to introduce, to foster trust and confidence in the electoral process by conducting the election with an unwavering commitment to fairness, accuracy, security, and transparency. That is our mission. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. A little bit about our community. Our community is 2.6 million registered voters. From there, we have 1.4 million 2.6 community population, we have 1.4 million registered voters. From that, we have, our department has 58 full-time employees. We recruit over 5,000 election workers during a major election. We contract with 48 different entities, and we are the largest county in Texas that administers elections and conducts voter registration. Okay? Look at this one. Okay. What do? Like I said, a lot of people think we come out every 4 years, but we maintain voter registration records. We administer elections. We have 31 cities, 17 ISDs, college, hospital, and water districts. We secure locations for early voting and election day. We also create our ballot, equipment tracking, and also all of our clerk tracking. That is what the election department does, aside from many other duties. Go ahead and go to the next one. This is our new building. In December 2019, we moved to our new location, which we love. We get to do all of our training there. We house all our equipment there, and we have a lot of equipment. And for those of you who have been previous poll workers, you've been there. If you haven't, we do tours, so you're welcome to come out there and we'll do a tour. Schedule a tour. Go ahead and go to the next one. This year is the type of elections that we have in Dallas County or in Texas, of course. The November general elections, which are held in even number of years, those consist of presidential, governor elections, and also uneven number years. And then the governor, even years, presidential, even years, and they last for 4-year terms. Other November elections on odd years is the constitutional amendment. The primary elections are held in March. Major political parties such as the Democratic and Republican parties, we have those elections then. We have the joint elections in May, which include city, school districts, and the community colleges. Special elections, we have them anytime during the year. If there's an emergency that they need to find a new candidate or something. So those are the type of elections that we have throughout the years. Okay? Next slide, please. This is just election turnout. I was able to get this turnout by age group from the March election. As you can see, the smallest one is the ages 18 to 24. They're not participating. So this presentation, if you are interested in these numbers, we can post it somewhere, or you can email me, and I can also email you the presentation. But yes, these numbers are very, the highest was ages 65 to 74, and the lowest ages 18 to 24, as you can see. Let's go to the next slide. Of course, in order to vote, you do have to be registered to vote, right? Registering to vote, go ahead and go to the next one. You must be at least 17 years or 10 months. Must be a United States citizen, not a convicted felon, and if you were, you should have already completed your sentences, probation, and parole. Not declared by final judgment to be totally or partially mentally incapacitated. Those are the requirements to be able to register to vote. Aside from this, I do the volunteer deputy register program, so I'm out in the community a lot registering people to vote. So I'm always looking for volunteers to help me out in the community, where we can send them out to help me man the tables at these locations that people invite me. So if you are interested, I have a schedule online that you can also sign up to be a volunteer deputy registrar. Go ahead and go to the next one. Where can you pick up an application? If anybody wants to register to vote, I have applications at libraries, at government offices, post offices. They can also register to vote with the Department of Public Safety or visit our office and just get registered. One of the newest things that I have created is a hub. I reached out to certain communities out in the community organizations where we bought a stand of applications, and they're out throughout the community. That QR code, if you scan it, it'll tell you where you can pick up an application so that you can mail it in. So that's a good thing that we have implemented this year out in the community. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. This is about felony convictions and voter registration. Once a felon has completed their sentences, probation, parole, they're not reporting to anyone. This is a frequent question that I asked out whenever I'm out there as well. And if you're a BDR, I'm sure you get this question. People can register to vote as soon as they have completed everything. They're completely off paper. They get their right to register soon after. So they can register to vote immediately. And I have information about this in our table over there. If you want to take some, you're more than welcome to. Go ahead and go to the next one, please. After you register to vote, you will receive your certificate. Your voter registration certificate gives you proof that you are a registered voter. It gives you all of the details, who represents you in your district, in your address. If you've noticed, once you register and you notice there's something wrong with it, make sure you let us know immediately if there's anything wrong with the application, with the certificate. Voting methods. In Dallas County, we have 3 voting methods. You can vote ballot by mail. You can request a ballot by mail if you meet the qualifications. You can also, during early voting, this election, we're going to have 70 locations. And on election day, we will be having 468 locations. In case you don't know, in Dallas County, we are vote center based. What does that mean? That means that you can vote at any one of the locations that is most convenient to you. Some people still think that they need to vote at their precinct-based location. It is no longer necessary. So help us spread the word, because I still get questions about that. Or phone calls. What is my assigned precinct? You're not restricted to a certain area. You can vote at any one of the locations that is most convenient to you. This is basic information on voting by mail. If you qualify and meet one of these requirements, you can definitely request a ballot by mail. You'll be 65 years of age or older. On election day, has a disability, is expected to give birth within 3 weeks before or after election day, is civically committed under Chapter 841, expects to be absent from the county during early voting and on election day, or confined in jail. Those are the qualifications. If you meet one of those, you can definitely request a ballot by mail application. Go ahead and go to the next slide. It is a thorough application, so you have to make sure you read the instructions, make sure you answer every question. One of the most important ones on the application, you can go to the next slide, it's where it asks you for your social security number or your driver's license. When you request a ballot by mail, that has to match what you're registered in the system with. So we basically ask you, when in doubt, you fill out both out, so that we can have more information to match you in our system when you're requesting a ballot by mail. After your information has been processed, you will receive your ballot in a green envelope and all sorts of information in that envelope. Then after you are ready to return your ballot, the ballot should go inside the secrecy envelope, and then that information has to go in the carrier envelope. All I ask is that you please read all the instructions, because if something like this is off, you don't put the ballot in the secrecy envelope, you don't do something, your ballot might not count. And we'll have to call you and you have to do everything all over again. So please make sure you do everything that the instructions tells you. This is about your ballot by mail request. So go ahead and go to the next one. Voter accessibility. As far as voter accessibility in the polling location, if you're not aware, we do curbside voting. It's not drive-through voting, so not everybody can go vote out of their car. Curbside voting is for the people that they cannot enter the vote center independently. They need assistance, or they can Outside of the polling location, we have a stand, it has a phone number, and you can call, the judge will come out and bring the system out to you. Is there any way we can click on that link?
Welcome to the procedure to process curbside voters that are physically unable to enter the polling place. The judge will assign 2 poll workers, if available, to process the curbside voter. When the voter has approached the designated spot, they'll dial the number on the curbside voting sign. The judge will answer the phone and inform the voter that a clerk will be out to assist them soon. Before the clerk goes outside to greet the voter, the clerk will unplug the e-poll book from the white power block and from the printer. The clerk will also take a stylus and a few ballot cards so the voter may choose their own serialized ballot card. Once all material is gathered, the clerk will take the e-poll book and supplies outside to process the voter. Once the voter is processed, the clerk will return to the vote center and re-plug the e-poll book to the white power block and the printer. The clerk will record the voter's name, precinct, and ballot style on the voter roster, and then insert the voter's chosen ballot card into the printer. Once the ballot card is printed, the clerk will retrieve a ballot secrecy envelope from the judge's table. Then the clerk will locate the accessible voting machine and retrieve the privacy screen. Then they will unplug the cable from the back of the voting machine, and lastly, they'll unplug the headphones. Before exiting the door, the clerk will grab the I voted sticker along with the voter's ballot. The clerk will give the ballot and stylus to the voter and hold the privacy screen over the voting machine. The second clerk will assist and hold the voting machine in place. The voter will insert the ballot into the voting machine and make their selections. Once the ballot is printed, the voter will insert their ballot into the secrecy envelope, and the clerk will hand the voter an I voted sticker. The clerks will then return to the voting site and reconnect the power cord and the headphones to the accessible voting machine. Meanwhile, the second clerk will give the secrecy envelope to the judge so the judge can deposit the ballot into the vote tabulator. However, if the judge is busy, one clerk may deposit the ballot, while a second clerk witnesses the ballot being deposited into the vote tabulator. The vote center personnel will assist curbside voters until the vote center closes.
All right, that is our curbside process. So that is there for anyone who needs it. Voting order priority is also voters who wish to be given voting order priority and be accepted for voting before others in line to vote at the polling place may indicate this to the election officer serving at the polling place. The presiding election judge shall bring the voter and the voter assistant, if applicable, forward to the front of the line. So there is another service that we offer to our voters. If they cannot stand in line for long periods of time, if they can't, if they're in a wheelchair or something and they want to go and vote, because a lot of people do take pride in voting, they want to go cast their own vote, they want to go inside the polling location. There is that service, order priority. Language accessibility, we do offer that. Right now we are required in Dallas County to accommodate to Spanish and Vietnamese language. And we do our best to have bilingual clerks at the polling locations. If for some reason we are unable to fill that, all of the judges also have on their cell phone an application where a live person, they can dial an application number and a live person will be there interpreting. At the same time, we also have people at our office that are bilingual, so people can always call our line directly. Go ahead and go to the next. This is the ballot marking device, which is these are the ADA accommodations that we have on the ballot marking device. It does have the audio tactile kit, keypad, and then the visual aids and the front access panel that people can plug in their headphones and that way they can have an audio ballot. So this here, it is a ballot marking device features that we have on the Express Vote. Go ahead and go to the next one. What to expect on Election Day. This is another video. If you can click on that, please.
Welcome to the Dallas County Elections Department. In this video, we will demonstrate how to process a voter. First, a clerk will greet the voter at the entrance and direct the voter to the check-in table. Then the clerk at the check-in table will ask the voter for an acceptable form of ID and follow the appropriate steps to check in the voter. Once the voter is checked in, the clerk will hand a ballot card to the voter and direct the voter to the voting machine. The voter will approach the voting machine and insert their ballot card. And when they have finished voting, their voted ballot card will be printed. Lastly, the voter will be directed to the vote tabulator, where a clerk will instruct the voter to deposit their marked ballot and will remind the voter to take an I voted sticker.
But yes, election day is very simple, and I brought a couple of equipment here for you guys to test drive if you were interested. We brought the poll book, we brought the ballot marking device. It is very easy. People walk in, you present your acceptable method of photo ID, then they give you the ballot just like they did in that video, and then you deposit it inside the ballot counter. So go ahead, getting involved. We're always looking for poll workers. Every year, we're always out there looking for poll workers. Our poll worker pool, sometimes they can be available this election, but they're not available the next election. So we always like to have it available for newcomers, new poll workers. So we have the Volunteer Deputy Register program as well. The Volunteer Deputy Register program is a program that I guide, and it's where people can assist me in registering people to vote out in the community. You do have to be trained. It is a Secretary of State mandated program, and you get certified, you get a little badge and everything. So if you guys are interested, like I said, it's on our website. There's a schedule in there. So that is one of our programs. Then we have Becoming a Poll Worker. The Student Worker Program, that is one of our most newest programs. I think that program is very important because it not only educates our students, our high school students, the information about working at that, about voting and engagement, but it also gives them a picture. Go ahead and go to the next one. They get paid as well. This is more details about the high school worker program. They can work as young as 16 years old. So if you know anyone, any high school that you want us to come out to introduce them to the high school worker program, please let us know. Go ahead and go to the next slide. What does it promote? It promotes civic engagement and education. Students gain first-hand experience working at the polling location about the democratic process and community awareness. Whether it's for them, self-learn, but they also get to have first-hand knowledge to help spread the word within their family, within their friends, community. Go ahead and go to the next slide. The eligibility to be a student worker, you have to be at least 16 years of age or older, must be enrolled in a public, private, or qualified homeschool, must be a United States citizen. If 18 years of age, they have to be registered to vote. It pays $18.24 an hour. The responsibilities are similar to any other clerk. They assist the judge, they assist the polling location staff in qualifying the people that are coming in, setting up the equipment, and things of that nature. Applying, they can go to DallasCountyVotes.org. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Preparing for the November 5th election. Please note, this election is a nonpartisan election. So what that means is that you don't have to be claim a party in this election. If you like one Republican and one Democrat, you can vote for them. Write-ins are official candidates and not just anyone you want to vote for. The list of names will be provided at the polling location, so there is going to be a couple of write-in candidates. Just look out for that list. Go ahead and go to the next one. Tuesday, November 5th, 2024, that is election day. The last day to register to vote is October the 7th. So if you're gonna be assisting us in registering people to vote, don't forget that day. October 21st is the first day of early voting. November 1st is the last day of early voting. And of course, November 5th is election day. November 5th, last day to receive ballot by mail. Mail ballots postmarked on or before November 5th. Those are the important dates for this election. Go ahead and go to the next one. In this election, we're gonna have a couple of cities participating as well. That's why it's called a joint. Ball Springs, City of Dallas, Farmers Branch, Glen Heights, and Hutchins, and the City of Irving will be participating in this election. Go ahead and go to the next one. In this November election, we estimate that we're gonna hire at least 3,000 clerks, about 480 student workers. We're gonna have inspectors out in the fields and field technicians as well. Go ahead and go to the next one. And in this election, we're gonna have 70 early voting locations, and election day, 468. Where do you vote? We do have an application on our website. Whether it's early voting and election day, if you guys don't mind, help us spread the word. It is a voting location finder. People can put their address on there, and then the 4 closest locations will pull up. Like I said, they can vote at any one of the locations where it's more convenient for them. They can live in Garland, and they work in Irving. They can vote at any one of the locations that is more convenient. And you can find that at dallascountyvotes.org. Go ahead and go to the next one. Visit our website. I don't know if you guys have visited our website lately, dallascountyvotes.org. It is new. We just updated it in July, I believe it was. So
It's really good. I was looking at it yesterday.
yeah. So our website is very informative. You can see if you're registered. If you want to help the community when you're out there, you can see if they're registered, if they're in suspense, if they're not in our system, they probably need to re-register and fill out another application. It doesn't hurt to fill out another application. We'll just send them an updated certificate. So they're, like I said, dallascountyvotes.org, they can, there's so much information in there. And we're always looking for friends. Social media. We frequently send out information, that way you can help us spread it out to your friends. So go ahead and become our friends. And then the next one. Any questions for me?
Okay, we're gonna have questions, we're having them at the end for everyone, right? So go ahead and take a seat. Oh, one to me, okay. So this is Sarah Kovich. Sarah is rideshare to vote aware. She brings extensive experience and expertise to her work with rideshare to vote aware. Sarah holds a master's degree in education and 25 years of experience, and together with her 17-year-old daughter, Sarah co-founded Rideshare to Vote Aware to address the often overlooked issue of transportation insecurity for voters across America. So thank you so much for what you do, and welcome. We're gonna, and we'll get questions on cards.
Gotcha. I was told yeah, write down your questions. I was told to take 20 minutes, but I don't know that I'm gonna have 20 minutes because this is our uniform. Just so you know, I opted to wear it today so that you could differentiate us from other work that you've heard about today. And the difference is, except for the souls to the polls that I heard and the registration out on the ground, we are on the ground every election, every year. So very much like the elections department, we are taking voters to the polls is the bottom line. And what we have done since our founding, Rideshare Vote Aware was founded in 2019, is we have become masterful at micro-targeting voters, very much like Robin talked about early on, who are low participating voters. They're registered, but they're just not showing up. And it's taken us a few years to figure out why they aren't showing up. But what we believe is that they aren't showing up because they aren't invited. They've just fallen out of the traditional campaign party ways of connecting with voters. And so we do something very similar to Robin's story and the other stories you heard. We take a voter record, we determine if they are a good fit for our program, we call them, we text them, we postcard them, and then we invite them, schedule them, and dispatch them a ride to go vote with a friendly driver. So for just a second, I want to take you back, and I want you to think about when was the very first time you ever walked into a polling location? So think about that for just a second. Was it when you turned 18? Yeah, never before. No parent ever took you in, you didn't have to go vote with anybody else, right? So some are saying yes, some are saying no. Mine was when I was about 6 or 8, and I was so excited. I had no idea what the hell we were doing. But my mom took me in, and she said, okay, just, I'm at her leg, right? We went in, and there was this machine, not like we saw today, right? There was this machine. It was like Oz, because I got to walk in, and my mom secretly let me pull this lever that closed the curtain behind me. I was hooked. I was hooked, right? I was never politically active in my career. My history is in, and my background is in mental health. I've had a private practice in Dallas for over 30 years. I still see a handful of folks. But when my then 17-year-old daughter, Paola, who I adopted from Guatemala, came home from Richland College and said, I want to volunteer, I guess I can say this, for the Colin Red CD32 campaign.
We're nonpartisan, but it's
Okay, this was in 2018, so way back. I said, who, what, where, what does that involve? Now, my kid is 5 foot nothing, okay? Looks nothing like me, except maybe a little on the stocky side like I am. 5 foot nothing, pretty demure, and she's telling me this, and I'm thinking, I'm not letting her anywhere near the streets of Dallas to do this. Oh, Mom, come on, it'll be okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so, the kid is turning 18, and I'm thinking, oof, she could really do this on her own. I don't really have a say. Do I want to play the mom card? I said, go for it. And so she did. And through that, she came home about a month later and said, oh, by the way, I have a capstone project due. Really? What's a capstone project? I know. What do I know? I'm 60 years old at that point, right? 55. Well, it's this thing we've got to do to graduate high school. Boy, I didn't have to do anything but barely show up and then walk across the stage. You need to graduate. And she said, I think I want to do it about voting. Great, what do you want to do? So we put our heads together. She ended up doing her capstone project on language differences in voting and how difficult it was for different language communities in this city to vote. Because back then, there wasn't too many language assistance things. Today, there's still only 2, Spanish and Vietnamese. So what happens if you speak something else, right? So Paola went off that way, and I said, if we're going to do a capstone project, then we're going to add to it. So we went to a local candidate running, and I said, well, what if I find a few people that look like me, and my Paola finds a few people that look like her, and we run this rideshare thing where we'll just take people to the polls. You have anybody who would go, oh, no, nobody needs rides to the polls. Really? Okay, well, I tell you what, we're going to do that anyway, so why don't you give us a list of people and we'll call voters and blah, blah, blah. I never wanted to meet with people, to be perfectly honest, but here I stand 5.5 years later, looking up lists of voters, calling voters, telling them that it's time to go vote every election. And that's what we do. Last year we ran in 150 elections across America. Okay? We are in 19 states. We've taken over 4,000 voters to the polls. We have gone through 3 variations of a dispatch app that suck, to be perfectly honest, if I can be so bold. But have you ever heard of Souls to the Polls? Anybody? Anybody ever done Souls to the Polls? Do you know what it is? So you're a faith group. Look at those names, come on. Why aren't you doing Souls to the Polls, right? First question, why aren't you? My argument would be you should be. Hold on, don't panic yet. Okay. Have you ever used Uber or Lyft to go to the polls? Why not? You don't need it, right? But what happens if in your community catchment area, there are people who don't have cars, there are people who maybe would listen to the concept of a souls to the polls, and there are people who would, in fact, say, sure, come pick me up. But what happened? You're gonna take 4,000 people to the polls, right? So that's what we offer, is a service that combines the recognition of all of the work that Souls to the Polls across America have done with current technology that Uber and Lyft, which by the way get millions and millions of dollars that we never get. There are no investors in rideshare to vote aware giving us millions and millions of dollars to become a non-revenue company like Uber and Lyft are. But we have that technology. We have an app, we have a web form, we have a phone. Voters can get to us any way that they want to. We do all the back-end work. We schedule their rides, we dispatch their rides, we reschedule their rides when they're too sick, or their medicine didn't work, or they broke their leg and they need to reschedule, blah, blah, blah. That's what we do, all day, every day, 365 days a year. Well, not really. We took off Christmas and we took off the day after November 8th last time, but that's what we do. And so I'm here today, I'm gonna do a plenary, I'm supposed to put in a shout out for that, I think it's right in there. But I'm here today and I would love to talk to those of you that have the access in your communities, in your faith houses, in your neighborhoods, I don't care where you have access to. Voters that you know are not voting. I also wanna talk to those of you who are going to do this idea that I heard about you're gonna check your rosters against who's voting, right? Because those are fabulous people, the ones that are not voting in your churches. They are great people to offer this to, because chances are they either haven't voted, had a bad experience, can't get to the polls but won't admit it, all kinds of reasons. So what we do, again, Rideshare Vote Aware, we contact voters with you. We partner with you. We are a one-stop shop for you to take all the work that you are doing and turning it into an actual vote. Somebody who's going to walk out of a voting center and have their I voted sticker. And if that's the kind of work you would like to do, and if you want to feel what that feels like to have someone with you that you know got their I voted sticker, not that they got a postcard, that does feel good, don't get me wrong. Not that you called them and asked if they were going to vote, that feels good too. If you want to get goosebumps about voting, think about talking to me or coming to the plenary and learning more about how we do this inside and out.
Great, thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
To remind everyone that after this last session, this plenary, we'll have a little bit of time for questions. You're going to be able to go to breakout sessions. So, and I will tell you where those are when we break out. So just start to be thinking about what you would like to do. So Rideshare Aware will be there. The county will be out here as well. ACLU, who you're going to hear next, will also have a session. And there will be a session for people who don't know where to start, like a one-on-one session here in the sanctuary. So we're going to talk about that some more, which area you're going to. But I also want to point out, in case no one knew, and I forgot to mention this earlier, that the restrooms are in the back corner over there under the exit sign, in case you did not know. So with that, I wanted to bring up Joseph Krennick and Mary Ibarra from ACLU. So let's welcome them. Mary Ibarra. You coming up, Mary? Is Joseph?
She's not going to make me yet.
Okay, okay. So Mary will also be in the breakout, but Joseph Krennick is a political organizer with several years of experience coordinating voter registration and GoTV efforts across multiple university campuses. He is currently an election protection organizer with the ACLU of Texas and serves as the, okay, what do you serve as? Because that's my page.
So I'm also the campus organizer for the DFW region for Texas Rising, if any of you are familiar with that. It's another organization that also does voter registration, GOTV efforts, that sort of thing.
So we created an arc for you guys. We want you to find out what's going on at the county, what's the voting stuff about, what are the kind of the nuts and bolts of voting, how can we do a project in our congregations that will help assist our members, and then what's the deal with protecting the vote and with our rights. So Justin's gonna help us give it and talk to you about what we'll do for right now.
Yeah, so I'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. Unfortunately, Mary is not able to join us. She's in Austin, Texas right now. But a little bit about election protection organizing and election protection in general. So we are a coalition of organizations, including ACLU of Texas, Campion Legal Center, Common Cause Texas, Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, League of Women Voters, NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, NALEO, and Texas Civil Rights Project. And together we make up the largest nonpartisan voter protection effort, working together to uphold the freedom to vote and equal access to the ballot for all eligible voters in Texas. And if I can go to the next slide. So our Texas Election Protection Field Team works to recruit, train, and deploy volunteer poll monitors. So that's kind of our main focus is our poll monitor program. That includes training, all that sort of stuff that you would need. We station these volunteers outside of polling places across the state, and the poll monitors are responsible for answering basic questions from voters, reporting systemic issues at polling locations, directing voters to our hotline, and collecting data used to advocate for better elections in the future. And next slide. So our organization also works on nonpartisan voter education and community engagement around election info and using our hotline. The hotline is the vote411.org hotline. Some of you may already be familiar with it. The voter guide from the League of Women Voters, events around voter education, which includes tabling like what we were doing up there. Our Know Your Rights trainings is another thing that we offer specifically for the ACLU. Trains you on any and all information you would need about your voting rights. Voter assistance and access training through TCRP. And Bexar County and Beyond Voting Rights Roundtable with the LC, LDF, and others. That's in San Antonio. And if I can get the next slide. So these are going to be all of our hotline numbers. If you want to take a picture of it, feel free to. These are going to be all of the numbers that you could potentially need to have access to on election day. We've got different languages, ASL, disability rights in Texas. So these are the numbers that if you run into any issues whatsoever, you reach out to them and they will do their best to help you come election day if you run into any issues or if you have any concerns about your vote not being counted, for example. And then if I could go on to the next slide. So here are a few of the threats that we have identified that could potentially come up this election. Outside challenges, so that includes mass voter registration challenges, frivolous election contests or litigation, audits by vigilante groups, cyber attacks on election systems, that was very concerning, issues with the election process, so whether that's natural disasters, human tragedy during the election season, disrupted post-election process, we're familiar with that one. Challenges to presidential certification, also familiar with that one. County political party implementation of hand counts of ballots. Dis and misinformation, so that's obviously a huge issue that we're facing on social media, misinforming people about when the election takes place, who can and cannot vote, things like that. Intimidation and violence, that is unfortunately also something that is a threat that we have identified, so that's people showing up to the polls, trying to prevent people from voting, trying to scare them away from the polls, instill fear in people essentially. And then state versus local conflicts, so any issues that come into play, including issues with the Secretary of State, imposing any kind of administrative oversight, specifically Harris County is a good example of that. And then also Secretary of State calling into question one or more election processes in Harris County and prosecution of election volunteers, which is also quite disturbing. And then if we could get the last and final slide, please. So if any of this is stuff that you're interested in, if you are interested in having your congregation sign up to be election protection workers, either doing the poll monitoring program, or if you're just interested in generally getting involved, we have a tiered system. So the bronze tier is people who help promote the hotline, volunteer recruitment through email, social media, or in-person events. The silver level is going to be bronze plus joining coalition call meetings. So this is kind of the kind of work that you think you or your congregation would be interested in becoming involved in, and you want to be in on those meetings so you're staying up to date. That would be the silver level. And then the gold will be silver plus bronze, plus co-hosting a poll monitor training or having your organization staff or members volunteer with us. So that's going to be more specifically the poll monitoring shifts, things like that. And if you are interested in that, we have a QR code that's going to be displayed right up there. If you take a picture of it, you can scan it later, or if you want to scan it now, you can do that. It'll be a Google form that will allow you or your organization, your congregation, etc., to sign up at one of those tier lists. So at whatever level that you feel comfortable getting involved in, we're more than happy to have you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Go sit down. And you come on back up too, because some of you have questions for you, so come on back up too, yeah. So I have a couple of questions that were handed out before, so if anyone has any questions, someone will come and can write them out on a card, or you can ask them in a breakout. But we had a couple of technical questions that came up before that I wanted to ask right before we kind of dismiss you. And some of them, I think all of you together you will collectively maybe have something to say. Or just know the answer. So someone asked, Texas restrictions concerning giving water or food to people standing in line to vote. Is there a restriction on that? So that might be Ms. Garcia answer the question.
There is no restriction to give water or give snacks to people that are waiting in line, but be careful what's on the water or what's on the stuff that you're passing out.
Has to be nonpartisan, in other words, correct? Okay. So there's no restriction. Is there a distance restriction?
Yes, they have to stay, if they are going to be passing out partisan stuff or pushing cards or whatever, they have to stay at least 100 feet from the design.
Okay.
From the entrance.
Okay, so there's a distance restriction, and it can't be like a label with a candidate on it,
Yes.
on the bottle of water, right?
Yes.
Okay, so thank you. And so this is a sort of also a combo rideshare question, because we're all, we're church-based institutions, faith-based institutions. So can voters be transported to the polls on Sunday after Sunday services, and are there restrictions on transporting others to the polls?
Nope. And yes, they can, and nope, there are not restrictions.
Okay, so there's not restrictions on how many people you can bring in your car or anything?
There is a law that was attempted to be passed, legislation limiting it to 8, but I don't know frankly if that did it, because we use individual drivers so that our voters have an experience about voting, so we don't run up against the laws at all.
Okay, Ms. Garcia,
Do you know about that one? I don't know that it went through.
No, I don't know.
It didn't go through. Joseph, do you know anything?
I would assume do not have more people in the car than there are seats in the car. Would be my only recommendation for that.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you for that. And then,
I actually haven't heard about your service, so I get a lot of people that ask me, do you know any people that are taking people?
We'll talk.
Yeah, excellent. So are the polls open on Sunday for voting?
There is, during early voting, there is some Sundays that, yes.
It differs in every election.
Yes.
Okay, and it may differ by county to some degree maybe also.
All I can say is keep an eye on our website at dallascountyvotes.org. We do have the early voting schedule there.
Okay, and then, so you kind of answered, I think we've answered that this was about transporting people to the polls, so I think we've answered that. Do you have another one, Sarah? Okay. What is mass voter registration? So
Mass.
or what? The ACLU.
Oh, yes. Let me, challenges to mass voter registration, I'm not quite certain what they mean by that, to be honest. I would assume, to be fair, I did not put the slide together, so I'm just reporting it. I would imagine that challenges to mass voter registration would be any attempt to kind of register like groups of people at larger events, things like that, where it's gatherings that are large gatherings like that, and I can't think that there would be any real challenges to. Maybe you would be able to speak on that. Not that I'm aware of, really.
As far as registering people to vote, anyone can put a table somewhere and register people to vote. So I don't know what challenge would that be, maybe making up voters or something?
Yeah, that would be my only guess, would be maybe making voters up.
That is against the law.
I also don't know that you can go into a location.
Robin, use the microphone.
Oh, sorry, yep, you can pass it on.
I don't know that you can go into a location, say an assisted living or an independent living facility, and force people to vote. I mean, to register, or vote, but not register.
No. Any location that my BBRs go out to or whatever, I tell them to get the permissions and authorizations first. You don't just go set up camp somewhere and just start registering people to vote.
So is there another question coming in over there? I see somebody writing. Anything else over here?
Through the civil rights movement, there were attempts to ban the things like having a label, and so maybe reflection of that.
Yeah, mass may not be the right word necessarily. It could just be attempts to prevent people from registering other people at events, things like that. Yeah, they could probably phrase that a little bit better.
Okay, so someone has a question about can you become certified to register voters? So I would suggest is to go by the county table and talk to Ms. Garcia, because she did speak about that. She's a little bit late coming in. So go ahead and go by the table. I think that'll be a good solution for that. And so we have a question. What are the most up-to-date rules for votes by mail? And what assistance can volunteers give people who are filling out mail ballots?
When it comes to the ballot by mail application, you can assist. You have to make sure you fill out the appropriate location as an assistant, as assisting. The most recent change that I know that was done, which was on the whole application, was making sure you have your social security number and your driver's license that you registered with. Whatever is in our system, not your driver's license or it's your personal ID, those are two different IDs. You have to make sure that you are applying for a ballot by mail with the same ID. Okay?
Okay, so thank you all so very much. I'm going to share with everyone where your breakouts will be, and we're going to do that shortly. But thank you all very much. Thank you. If you're here with a group that you think about just dividing and conquering, like maybe not all go to one thing. If there's a lot of information you want to take back to your congregation, I'd spread out if you have enough folks to do that. So you want to kind of talk among yourselves. So we're going to break out, and I would like everyone to be back around 3:45. 3:50-ish, and then we'll come together and talk a little bit, and then we'll disperse everyone. And you can take snacks home with you because there's lots. You can go by the snack table and take it to your next assignment. But you can try not to eat in the sanctuary. So kind of maybe hang out at the table for a minute before you come here. So here's where everyone's going to be in the sanctuary. If you're a congregation, so in line with the first panel, right? If your congregation is, where do we start? How do we do some of these things? Texas Impact is going to be here talking about that. Like how to get civic engagement going in your congregation. Next door, Rideshare Aware is going to be next door. And they're going to be talking about really the nitty-gritty pieces of how to implement something with your congregation. All right? And then back in the back, we're going to have my associate, Lori Kleinfeld, right here. Lori's going to talk about building a relationship with county administrators. We did that today. But she's going to talk about an action that RAC Texas did to talk to county administrators all over Texas in 2020 and 2023. And if you think about it, those are pretty tense times. We're in the middle of a pandemic. No one knew how to vote, so it was really important to reach out and build relationships. So she's going to talk a little bit about that experience and why it matters and why it's so important. And then we're going to all hear a little bit from the county as well. And then in the boardroom, that first room, when you come in, it will be on your left as you go towards the doors and the entranceway. ACLU will be there, and they're going to be going into more detail about election protection and signing up. And I think I got everybody. So with that, remember the restrooms where the exit sign is, and go forth, get a little snack and figure out where you guys are going, and we'll see you back here about 3:45 or 3:50. What?
In the room by 3:50.
Yeah, be in here by 3:50. Okay, y'all, thank you.